and stay on schedule. A couple of housekeeping notes that we want to make sure we take care of. First, no applicants are allowed to sit in on the interview of any other applicants. So if you are an applicant, we would ask that you move out to the lobby. If you are a friend or a family member of an applicant, and we find that you are in here listening to the questions and that you're going to go out there and give them an update to try to give them an edge, if we find out about it, it could result in the elimination of that applicant. So, we got the ground rules now. Mr. Schultz, if you have a couple of minutes, would you have a prepared statement?
I do. Thank you very much. One of the things that I think that I would bring to the board, one of the criteria listed on the application for board member is, and I quote, to give the superintendent the benefit of the board's counsel in matters related to individual board members' expertise, familiarity with the local school system, and community interests. I've lived in Hoover for nearly 28 years. My 3 children attended Hoover City Schools from 1992 to 2014, so I've had 23 nonstop years of experience with Hoover City Schools. Because of this, I've had experience with Crossroads, special education, and the honors program, as well as academies in Hoover High School. In addition to that, I was given guardianship of one of my Sunday school students who was considered low income, which gave me exposure to what approximately 26% of our student population is part of. Not every child in Hoover City Schools is as blessed and fortunate as we are, and I got to see that firsthand. Through this experience, I founded Learning to Be the Light, which provides refurbished computers to low-income Hoover students at no charge. Hoover is an extremely diverse city, and the candidate needs to be one that understands and is in touch with the entire community, not just their own. Although I'm originally from Germany, I lived in Mexico prior to immigrating to the U.S., so English is my third language, so I can relate to the ESL students that we have. I do not have a college degree, yet I've been successful. At a recent Hoover Area Chamber of Commerce meeting, the speaker, Jim Searcy, Economic Development Association of Alabama, stated, and I quote, "We've really got to work on workforce development. We need to engage our kids and our parents to understand that there are a lot more things to do than a 4-year degree." He stated, and I agree, that we must make sure that our schools have adequate resources so they can focus on workforce development at the kindergarten through 12th grade level and fill the jobs that don't require a degree, yet do require special training. For those students who are going to college, like my youngest, we must make all financial aid resources available to them, including help with scholarships, so they don't leave college saddled with a huge student loan debt. In 2013, when Mr. Cooper was up for reappointment to the board, Mr. Wright made a comment to AL.com. He said, and I quote, "Sometimes it can take up to 18 months for someone new to get up to speed on school board issues. Having missed only about 10 board meetings since 2007, I'm completely familiar with board issues. I plan to hit the ground running, so I'm the only one who won't need to, quote, get up to speed. I'm already there. Should be noted, though, if you're looking for a yes man, one who drinks the Kool-Aid, then I'm not your candidate. If you're looking for someone who will analyze every item objectively and from all angles, then I am your candidate. Much has been made about the geographic location of the candidate, since most of the current members of the board are from the Hoover High School feeder system. I've always been adamant that a board member represents the entire school system, not just where they're from. I came to this realization back in 2007 through 2009. A tremendous amount of divisiveness was created on the board and in the city because of the geographic location of the members. To make the council feel better, although I do live in Bluff Park, my grandson is a first grader at River Chase Elementary who will be attending Rocky Ridge Elementary next year, a Spain Park feeder school. Mr. Smith asked a question on social media regarding this issue this past Tuesday. He asked, who should the council choose, the best candidate or someone from the Spain Park feeder system? The resounding response was the best candidate. And I'll take your questions.
Please, let you start.
I'd like to, you made a mention here, IEP. Could you explain what IEP stands for?
It's the individual, it's special education. It's where students who have special needs to have, is focused, and they go ahead and work with them on a one-to-one basis. My son was identified as having special needs as far as he had some issues that they worked with him closely, And because of that, it focused on him, and he was able to succeed. Prior to that, he wasn't doing so well.
So you good experience then with that?
Very good experience, yes.
Good, thank you for that.
Anything else, Mr. Joe?
No,
Okay. Robin, we've known each other a long time.
Yes, sir.
Let me first say thank you for being here, taking the time and effort to do this. I appreciate your willingness to do it. Most board applicants have said one of the most important critical issues facing the board right now is either financial accountability or budget, get to a balanced budget. Do you have any ideas on how you would approach that?
Well, I think that every item needs to be looked at objectively. We have to look at the big picture, what can be removed, what needs to stay. I think a perfect example of this was back in 2013 when we had cutting the bus issue. Even though that was going to save $2.5 million, it affected things in other ways that were not positive. And even though that was a quick fix, it adversely affected other things, so it was not a good idea. Everything has to be looked at, and the consequences have to be looked at from that as well.
Okay. Follow-up question. This question is not a qualifying question or a disqualifying question. It's just for my purpose only. What's your opinion on Common Core?
From looking at it, I don't agree with it. I've heard from both sides, pros and cons, and my own personal opinion is it looks to be very complicated. On the other hand, those people that are for it say it gives the students some very good thinking. It gives them a very good capability of thinking. So at this point, I'd leave that up to the educators and see what their stance is on it.
Okay. Mr. Wright.
Robin, school board terms are 5 years. What do you see as new challenges facing us the next 5 years in the schools?
The biggest is going to be the increase in population. We're going to get more people in Hoover, and we need to make sure that we have the correct financial. Everything is set financially correct for those new students. That we have the infrastructure in place, and in 5 years hope to have a balanced budget.
Do you have any ideas or thoughts on the third high school?
I think that right now, the way that Hoover and Spain Park are laid out, I think that we have adequate space. We have one school that's got close to 3,000 students, and the other one that's nowhere close to that. And I think balancing it out is going to help matters. So at this point in time, no, I don't believe that a third high school would be something that would be needed, especially the cost of what a third high school would cost.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Green.
Robin, talk to me a minute about parent participation. As we all know, without parent participation, students don't do as well. Do you have any thoughts on motivating more parents to get involved?
Well, I think that's a great question, and that's something that in Bluff Park we've been working on, is having community meetings and bringing the parents in, not just when there is something that is controversial, like the buses or like the rezoning. When we had both of those issues, people came out of everywhere and they participated. But as soon as those issues were over with, they went back to where they were. And we feel very strongly, I feel very strongly, that a parent should attend a school board meeting at least once every 3 to 4 months, just to see what's going on. They need to become familiar with it. We need to engage parents. When one of the issues that I brought up was helping students that are going to college, getting them ready from a financial point of view. We have a college and career counselor at Hoover High School who has to handle a single class of almost 700 students to get them ready for scholarships and things like that. That's going to be very difficult for one person to do. If we can get parents in the community to come in, act as mentors, act as helping out, this is going to benefit the entire community. I think one of the issues, though, is with especially at the high school level, sometimes it's very difficult for the parents to come in because they don't know if they can come in. So we have to give them that same welcoming atmosphere that they get at the elementary school level that kind of goes away as the kids get older. But to answer your question, yes, parent participation is critical in order for everybody to succeed.
And with your employment, will it hinder you from attending any meetings, et cetera, putting in the time that's needed?
No. Having my own business, I can make my own schedule. So that makes it very easy to do that.
Do you have any thoughts on how much time it will take?
Whatever time it takes is what I can devote to it. I mean, my schedule is very flexible, and so there is education that is involved. There is phone calls. There's emails. All that. I don't see a problem with that.
I'm looking at the duties and authority of board members. Do you want to, and I have it in writing, I know you don't in front of me, but do you have an idea of what those duties and authority of board members are?
Yes, I do.
Please.
Well, the primary thing is to support the superintendent. As an individual, a board member really has no authority. It's as a group that they have the authority. They are there to make policy. They do not. One of the biggest things that we had an issue with in the late 2000s was micromanaging, and we don't want to micromanage. We want to get away from the micromanaging. We want the superintendent to do their job, and we need to support the superintendent. At the same time, giving them the advice in order to make her job successful.
Well said. Quote, the primary responsibility of the board is to establish, review, and revise policy. That's all I have. Thank you.
Robin, you talk about supporting the superintendent. What if you disagree?
I think that if I disagree, I have to give reasons for the disagreement and make sure that my response, there are reasons for the disagreement. I think rubber stamping the superintendent is not the way to go. I think looking at each item objectively and analyzing each item is the way to go. And if you don't agree, say so.
So you're willing to vote against the majority if you feel passionate enough.
Absolutely.
Mr. Green kind of touched it. What are the two positions that the board is directly responsible for hiring and firing?
It's going to be the superintendent and the superintendent.
Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, CFO.
What can you tell us about the Alabama Accountability Act?
Not much. Not familiar with that.
All right. It's the act that has to do with children in failing schools get vouchers to be able to go to other schools, including homeschooling. We've already talked about Common Core. One thing that I learned last night was that in teaching history, Common Core is looking to remove large parts of world history. The one in particular, the one that spoke to me last night was the Holocaust. That the history books in Common Core are trying to get rid of the Holocaust. Very unfortunate. What do locally funded units mean to Hoover City Schools? And
Well,
where do the monies come from for those locally funded units?
the local funding units are going to be the local money that comes in for the teachers in locally, and that's going to be from your property tax right now, and whatever other funds the city gives to the school.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any follow-up questions?
You have any idea what the 24 mil property tax that's collected that goes to the schools, what that number is?
I do not.
It's 37 million.
Okay.
you have a rough idea what the budget of the schools are?
168 million, approximately.
You have a grip on roughly what the total reserves of the schools are?
Approximately 83 million.
That's pretty good. Okay, those are good answers. Additional questions?
Anybody else? Robin, I know that we're given a short period of time right now at this point. I don't know if we're gonna have secondary interviews or if any of the members are gonna want to talk to applicants one-on-one, if second interviews are not recommended. You were asked a number of things this afternoon, but I'm sure you're prepared to talk about many more. Is there anything about yourself and the position you seek that you were not asked that you would like to make sure that we understand?
I think everything was covered in the opening statement. The most important part is, in my opinion, that whoever is chosen represents the entire city. We have got to make sure that that board member looks at every single individual in the city, not just with the particular geographic area where they're from.
We've got just a couple more minutes. I want to ask you, because you yourself hit on it a little bit, what is your understanding of Title I and how it applies to your city schools?
Well, at this point in time, how it applies is going to, as I understand it right now, we're getting some shifts in the population of the students, and there is, I think, some misinformation is going as to where we're going to be getting some more Title I students.
But Title I itself, how does it aid Hoover City Schools?
Additional funding from federal government.
For the purposes of?
Education, as far as the Title I, lower income students.
And so part of that is determined by free and reduced lunches?
Yes.
Do you want to expand on that anymore?
I mean, right now, the latest number that I have is 26% of our kids are free and reduced lunch. That number goes up and down, and in focusing of it, I think in Hoover, especially at the high school level, they are very, very difficult to identify. Our kids here in Hoover want to fit in, and it is a issue that is very close to me based upon what I have seen and helping these kids out. But as far as, and I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
I've got one more, and we just got about a minute left. A couple of summers ago, I worked on an ordinance that would have criminalized the registration of out-of-area students. There's already a state law, but out-of-area students that parents choose to enroll in Hoover City Schools. I'm sure we've all heard stories about people from as far away as Centerpoint that are registered in Hoover City Schools and taking advantage of our system when they're not, they've got other districts that they're supposed to be in. What is your opinion of those?
If they don't live in Hoover and they're not taxpayers in Hoover, the kids can't go to Hoover City Schools. Criminalization, I don't know where you wanted to go with that. I think that removal from the school is already a pretty hefty penalty. I don't think that if you don't live in Hoover, I think if you don't live in Hoover, you can't go to Hoover City Schools.
Well, the way my ordinance was crafted was that it would be a misdemeanor. But much like HB 11 that the legislature passed a number of years ago, I guess it was more of a hope that people would self-police themselves. That because there was a chance something like that would happen, then maybe they would just choose to go somewhere that it wasn't a problem. So that was really it. Well, thank you for your time. And if there's going to be any second interviews, someone, probably Marge, will be in touch with you. You may also expect some possible conversations from some of the members.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Locker is next. Hello, Mr. Locker.
Hello.
You know, it's kind of heartfelt that you are applying for this, because if you get this, and we're going to lose a good BCA chairman.
Appreciate that. I do have a few miles under me on BZA. It's been a good run.
You do. You have a good number of years. I think 10.
Yes, sir.
You've done an excellent job.
Thank you.
We've had a few more people come in the room, so I need to go over a couple of housekeeping rules that we did prior to the first interview. First, obviously there is no participation from the audience. If you want to talk to any of the candidates, you would need to do so outside of here. If you want to talk to any of the members, it would need to be after the meeting or during an intermission possibly. The most important thing I want to say is a lot of time family members or friends want to come in and watch the interview process. And sometimes they like to go outside and kind of bring them up to date as to some of the questions that they may have heard, to try to give their friend or family member a little bit of an edge. If we do catch somebody doing something like that, then there is a possibility that that applicant could no longer be considered for the position. We're just trying to keep everybody equal, fair. So if we ask something really off the wall, we don't want to send somebody out there like, how far is it from here to Mars and back? So, Mr. Locker, everything being said, do you have anything you'd like to start with?
Well, I would like to thank the council for having me here today, for giving me the opportunity to state my case and make an appeal to be selected as the next Board of Education member. I will apologize in advance if I have a tickling cough. I've been fighting this thing for about 2 weeks. I'm almost over the hump, but I did have to bring a security blanket just in case. So, thank you.
No problem. Do you have a prepared statement or anything?
No, I will. Some of you know me. Some of you might not know me as well, but I'll give you a little introduction. My name is Guy Locker. My wife, Christina, is in the audience behind me. Christina and I have been married for nearly 23 years now, 23 great years. Of those 23, we have lived in Hoover for nearly 17. When we moved into Hoover in 1999, we had 2 children at the time. We've added a third since. The oldest is now a junior at Auburn. The other 2, the middle son is a senior at Hoover High, and the baby of the family is an 8th grader at Simmons. So after this year, we're out of the elementary and middle school business. It'll all be high school and college. Looking forward to it. I did apply for this board opening because I want to contribute. I think I've contributed in a lot of ways to the schools and to the community at large, and would like to try to step it up a notch and take it to the next level. I believe that I have the skills and the experience that are needed to help the schools navigate some pretty serious issues. I'd like to help the schools continue to grow as an asset for the city at large and not just for the school system. With that, I'm open to any questions you have.
Okay, Mr. Skelton, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you for your service to the citizens already in your current capacity. Appreciate you taking the time and the initiative to apply for this. Most all board applicants, including yourself, has expressed one of the critical issues facing the school is funding or budget. You know, having a balanced budget and so forth. Do you have any ideas on how you would reach some goals in that regard?
Well, I do agree that the finances are the primary issue right now. The school system is large and it does take a lot of money, and I know there are some concerns as to certain efficiencies that might be achieved and in certain areas, and I think there is some room for discussion there. I do believe that the deficit is a huge issue, not only because I think it's a difficult situation to comprehend, how you can continually spend more than you bring in. None of us can survive with that. But it's compounded by the fact that up until this past year, the schools have increased and increased and increased in size, and those are certainly factors that are beyond their control. So they're facing issues that are both controllable in-house and issues that are certainly beyond their control, and they kind of compound each other. If the deficits continue, however, and let's just hypothetically say if they continued at the level they are now, by the time whoever is appointed to this position, by the time their term expires, if the deficits continue at this level, the school system the reserve fund could be at that magic level where all of a sudden the state wants to come in and take control. And I don't think anybody, the school system or the city, any of the residents would benefit from that. And that's what I would think is in the course of this appointment's term, the 5-year term, that will be the primary factor that has to be overcome.
Okay, thank you.
One other question. This is just for comments only. That's not going to hurt you, help you, whatever. What's your opinion on Common Core?
Well, I don't have a strong opinion because I haven't delved into it far enough to understand it. On the surface, I tend to think it sounds like perhaps another instance of heavy-handed overbearingness, but I wouldn't let a preconceived notion like that keep me from looking at it with open eyes. But honestly, I haven't looked into it close enough to understand all the nuances and the potential pitfalls.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Green?
Mr. Walker, what do you believe are the most important responsibilities of a school board member? Do you have a list in mind, so to speak?
Well, actually, in the policy manual that I found on the board's website a long time ago, and I did save a copy of it, there is a pretty extensive list of what the duties are, and some of them are fairly mundane: to attend board meetings, become familiar with rules, vote and act in board meetings in good faith, accept the will of the majority. It goes on and on through several more, down through letter J. None of them are overly earth-shattering. However, under the policy called Board Superintendent Relations, I think is what I have always pegged as the most important, and verbatim it says the board considers the formulation and adoption of policies as its most important function. And that meshes with what I've always felt would be the policy-making role of the board.
And have you attended any board meetings?
I attend them regularly, yes, sir.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Wright?
Guy, we certainly have appreciated your service on the boards in the past.
Thank you.
The property tax in Hoover goes to schools about 24 mil. Do you know what that translates directly to schools?
Translates to, are you talking
In millions.
in millions? Well, out of the property tax, I would have to look at the breakdown. I know the overall expenditure budget is on the order of 168 million. I haven't looked at it.
It's about 37 million is generated from the property tax
Okay.
in Hoover on their millage. Do you have any idea what the school reserves are as we speak?
I believe the projection was that at the end of this fiscal year, it would be on the order of $79 million. Now, even right toward the end of the last fiscal year, I know there were some adjustments to that, and the projection or the actual number came down from what was projected for FY15, but it went up for what was projected for FY16 just because of some expenses that I think crossed over into the next fiscal year. But the projection was around $79 million.
Okay. Do you have an idea what the actual deficit was in the operational income last year?
In the operational, no, sir. Are you talking about the overall deficit? I think the projection was around $10 million for last year.
You know what it came in at?
I do not know.
Okay. There's been talk of Hoover needing a third high school. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm open to the idea. And part of it, I think, will rest on how the enrollment numbers rebound. I fully understand enrollment was, for last school year, was up only a little bit, and this year was actually down by about 59 students. Prior to that, for the previous 8 years, it had been increasing at 200 or 300 students per year. So I believe the last 2 years are quite an anomaly, and that it will rebound. How that rebounds will impact what needs to be done. The growth is continuing on the western side, and especially if Lake Wilburn development eventually comes on board, that growth is, you have that, and you have Ross Bridge still building out, and you have smaller pockets still being filled in. Either Hoover High School is going to have to be expanded again, and there is room for it, but it's just what's the comfort level that the city and the school system have for how large the school gets, or another high school is going to have to be built. I think the answer that was proposed 2 years ago for balancing out some of that, of sending a bunch of students from this side of town over to Spain Park, was untenable because of the travel distances involved and the coordination nightmare that would cause. So that, to me, leaves only two options: expanding Hoover again or building a third high school. And I would be open, and I know a lot of parents I have talked to would be open to the idea of it being even a smaller high school. It doesn't have to be a 6A or 7A, as long as it serves a pocket that is needed and where the growth is occurring.
If you got the board appointment to be a 5-year term, what do you see as the biggest challenge popping up during the next 5 years?
Well, I mentioned finances. I think that's the biggest one because, like I said, if the deficits continue, eventually the reserve fund runs dry. You run below that 1 month level, and then you've got no more well to go to. That the budgets have to be balanced at some point, and the reserve fund stabilized. The reserve fund doesn't have to grow infinitely; it just needs to be stabilized. Aside from that, I think this is something the school system can't do. There's going to have to be some cooperative effort, I think, between the school system and the city to address future growth, where the growth is occurring, understand that what was zoned previously it's zoned what it is, and that's where the growth is going to be. I kind of wonder if maybe there's been some breakdowns in dialogue back and forth over the years that where the school system is not properly forecasting where some of these growth needs occur and is more in a response mode than a planning mode. And then those things aside, I think the school system has a lot of work to do to regain its image. I think there's been a lot of image harm, much of it self-imposed in the last 2 or 3 years with the rezoning, with the bus situation, with talk about budgets. A variety, it's been. Some people say no press is bad press. I would argue that point in this case. I think a lot of it has been very harmful.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you here.
Thank you.
Guy and I worked on the BZA for a number of years, so I've known Guy for a long time. Thank you for applying for the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But I was on this budgeting issue. You say the system's reserve fund is nearly depleted. That was kind of a strong statement. I had a big question mark beside that in here, and I went and looked up the reserve and to see if that was a true statement.
Well,
I felt kind of concerned about that.
Sure. And if that's the way I worded it in my application, then hopefully that was a result of trying to fit more than a lot of thought into a limited space. Maybe I should have taken time and made that a separate page. If I said nearly depleted, that might be what I said. It doesn't really cover what I was thinking, and as I described, I think the 79 million is not nearly depleted. I could live off that for a little while myself. However, my fear is, or my concern is that if these deficits continue, if we don't somehow close that gap between expenditures and revenue, and the deficits continue at the current levels, then before this next appointee, before his or her term expires, the reserve fund would be depleted below the state mandated requirement of 1 month's reserve. And that's the concern I was trying to convey in that statement.
And just a couple of, just pretty much housekeeping. How many students are in the Hoover City Schools?
Well, it's a little under 14,000. It's 13,800 something.
How many schools?
16 plus Crossroads.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Guy?
Yes, sir.
How many times you walk through a store and somebody says, "Hi, Guy, don't be doing that," and they're talking to somebody else? Do you think it's you?
Oh, maybe not that necessarily that term, but yes. Hey, guy, and that is me.
What are the two positions that the board is directly responsible for when contracting and hiring?
You're talking about school positions, the superintendent
There's one more.
and the chief financial. I'm not sure if they've got the
Right.
name right, but basically the chief financial officer.
Got that right. The board votes off the recommendations of the superintendent.
Yes, sir.
Let's say that the superintendent brings something that you are passionate about that you really don't support. Are you willing to vote against the majority, or do you feel like you need to vote with the majority just to make it look good?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm a consensus builder, but I'm not a go along to get along guy. I would have no problem voting my conscience, and I think Mr. Reeves can attest to that from our time on BZA. The approach we took for a long time on BZA, and I would hold the same philosophy if appointed here, is to talk it out, work it out. No need to raise voices, but work it out. Try to find common ground, find a consensus. And if the consensus isn't where you want, you vote your conscience. And often, our BZA cases were unanimous votes, but not because anyone particularly wanted to go along to get along. It was because we would find a way to have the applicant give a little bit and the city to, or for the BZA to get to a comfort level with the zoning ordinance. So, but we didn't always reach consensus. We didn't always reach a unanimous decision, and there were times when Joe and I'm sure, voted opposite ways on cases, and it let the chips fall where they may.
What do you know about the Alabama Accountability Act?
By name, I don't know a whole lot about it.
That's the act that the legislature passed a few years ago that allows students in failing schools to be able to get vouchers to go to passing schools if they're accepted. Already talked a little bit about Common Core. Kind of feeding off what Mr. Wright asked, what do you believe locally funded units mean to Hoover City Schools, which is above and beyond state-funded teaching units?
I believe strongly in them, actually. I believe that they are vital to the additional services, the additional offerings that a school system can provide. And to me, that is the crux of why a school system is formed in the first place, to offer something above and beyond the bare minimum that can be provided at the county level primarily with state funding. That is, to me, why you break away so that you can go a little bit above and beyond.
So local funds are used for the betterment of the system, maybe to be able to increase pay opportunities. To attract better teachers with higher pay, perhaps, to offer to provide additional teaching positions to reduce class size, because that could have the same effect of increasing the educational opportunities, to offer maybe some unique programs. Now, that said, I don't want it believed that I believe that any
funding source is a bottomless pit. I do not believe that at all, and that's where I think the comfort level, the common ground needs to be worked on a little.
The legislature is looking at a 4% increase for teachers before the end of this session. How much do you think that would add to the current budget? It could add to the deficit.
I'm not sure about how much it would add to the budget, but if it's 4%, would that be 4% of state funding, or would the state just be requiring every school system?
It'd be 4% of the state funded.
Okay.
Of course, we would anticipate that the local dollars would match that, so
Yes.
all the teachers are paid the same.
Well, obviously, payroll is by and large the biggest component of the budget, the $168 million or so budget. Payroll is the vast majority of that, and that 4% trickle down on the local side, I'm sure would add. It would add up quickly.
Okay, I know we've run over just a little bit, but you know, I'm sure you're prepared for all kinds of questions. Is there anything that you wanted us to know or to have brought up that we didn't, that you feel would benefit us knowing from you, just to kind of wrap things up?
Well, I'm going to say, not off the top of my head, I know in 15 minutes it'll come to me. So, but I do want to again thank you for allowing me to speak and for asking me some very good and detailed and well thought out questions. Please do consider what I think is one of my strengths for this position, which would be the ability to work as a team member to reach common ground in some very tough decisions, and to do ultimately what I believe would be in the best interest of the Hoover City Schools and of the city at large.
Okay. I guess that wraps it up. At this point, we don't know if there will be any secondary interviews, or whether it's possible that any of the members of the committee will contact you if they think of something else that they may want to know.
Sure.
In lieu of a second interview. But thank you for coming, and we'll see you around.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Brunner?
Sir.
First, I'd like to thank you for your military service. And would ask if you have any opening remarks that you would like to present prior to any questions being asked.
I guess I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm about 50 years old. I am 50 years old. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, and after I graduated, I joined the service. I was enlisted in the Army, served 3 years. After the service, my parents moved down here to Birmingham in the Hoover area, and so I came back from Europe, and I was here and came here to Birmingham, ended up at Auburn University, where I worked at the VA office for a short period of time while I was working on my bachelor's degree, and I got my bachelor's in microbiology and my doctor of veterinary medicine at Auburn. I met my wife there. We've been married 25 years this August. If I don't forget to buy her something, I'll be okay. We have 3 children. My oldest is all through the Hoover school systems. My oldest is class of 2011. He went out. He was very active in the band and the choir. He went on to Auburn and was in the marching band and was in the choir down at Auburn University, and is currently at Kansas State University as a graduate assistant in the athletic department working in sports information. Our middle child, Abby, is class of 2013. She was very active in the Law Academy and was very active in soccer. She has 2 championship rings from playing soccer at the high school level. She is currently at Birmingham Southern. She is studying for the LSAT this time and deciding whether she wants to go to law school or if she wants to get a master's in public policy at Georgetown. And the youngest is Anna, and she's a class of 2019. She is active in the Health Academy, and she also plays soccer at the high school level. The reason I mention these things is, one, just to let you know who I am and to kind of give you an idea of how far the school systems have come. A couple of the surveys you guys probably already saw that came out over the last couple of weeks. One is the college readiness survey that has come out, and it ranks all the high school, public high schools in the state of Alabama. And it bases on ACT, SAT, AP scores, several other criteria. Our schools have ranked in the top 10. I believe Spain Park was number 3 and Hoover High School is number 9, which is a great accomplishment that our teachers and what we're doing in the school system. The other one was the safety study that came out. You guys probably saw that. It was a survey on the, basically took an idea of the number of kids that have been either suspended or expelled from school. But the big thing on that was a survey for the students and the parents and how they feel the safety factors of their schools. And on that survey, I believe that we ranked in the top 3. I want to say, I believe the safety survey, Spain Park was number 2 and Hoover High School is number 3. And the thing I like about that is the parents and the kids had a big say in that survey, and they were actually, asked, what they thought, and that tells us that the parents and the kids in our school system believe in what we're doing, what the city's doing, what the school's doing. So,
I had a daughter at Hoover High when they had a stabbing there, and she was truly traumatized. She didn't want to go to school for several days after that. So hearing and seeing stories like that are greatly honoring. Mr. Wright.
Thank you for coming. The property tax is 24 mills in Hoover that goes to the schools. You know what that equates to in dollars to the schools?
As far as, do I know the exact number? No, sir, I do not. But what I do know is how the money funding that goes to the school system, is my understanding, is it's funded by 3 different sources: federal dollars, state dollars, and city dollars. And the state and the federal dollars are pretty much set in what they can spend it on and where they can go. And the city dollars is obviously what's coming from you guys in the city of Hoover. Is my understanding since the last 11 years, since 2005, that the city of Hoover has given $2 million a year to the school system in straight direct dollars. Prior to that, it was a higher number, but the conversion and how much exactly each one would go to, I don't have that answer for you.
Okay, you know roughly what the school reserves are?
The school reserves, based on the 2016 budget, what I have here in the general fund is $49.7 million, and the total funds is $72.8 million.
Okay. There's been talk that Hoover needs a 3rd high school. Do you have any ideas on that?
One of the things that we did, there was a survey or a statement out on the actual number of kids in the school system. And a lot of our schools are getting close to capacity. Berry Middle School right now, is getting close to their capacity system. Bluff Park, Deer Valley. So as our number of students increase in the city of Hoover, as people move in, which we all want to happen, we're going to get more and more kids. And as these kids move in, we're going to need to get those kids to a school system in their local communities, closer to their housing, and if we can lower the capacity at some schools, being more efficient in their resources.
You think that calls for a 3rd high school?
I think it's something that if the number of students continue to grow, I think right now we're at 13,836 students. If that number continues to grow and our capacity, based on the building capacity reviews that they have, if that continues to grow up, that's going to be something we're going to be put in the budget for capital expense down the future.
The school board's a 5-year term.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as the biggest challenge coming to the schools in the next 5 years?
As far as the school board or the school system, there's 2 things I would look at. I would say the biggest problem or biggest challenge for the next 5 years is getting this budget balanced. I've owned a business here in the city of Hoover for 20 years. And I know if I spend more than I make, I won't be in business anymore. So bottom line is we got to balance this budget. We can only spend as much as we make. I believe the budget this year, we had $167.9 million in expenses, and we got an estimate income of $156.8 million, which is a deficit of a little over $10 million. Yeah, we have a reserve, but we have to come up with a way to balance that budget.
Thank you.
Mr. Skelton.
Doctor, thank you for coming in. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to do this, and we appreciate it. If you don't mind, let me start off with giving you a little bit of advice on your 25th anniversary. Go ahead and buy the gift now, so you'll have it, so you don't forget it. We just celebrated our 25th last month, and I bought it like 6 months ahead of time, so.
I'll definitely keep
I
that
knew
in
I
mind.
had it, so. Along with most of the other applicants, you talk about funding, and the budget is a critical element of what's facing the city schools. You just briefly talked about the budget and the funding. What are your ideas on balancing that budget?
Okay, it is a good point, because one of the things that we have to always remember, I've been very active in the Boy Scouts, and one of the things that I always told the Scouts is, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So let's come up with some solutions to make this work, okay? So one of the things, and some of the things I have in mind may not be very popular with everybody, and I get that, but we just do the best we can. In 2004, the city, and it was before my time, maybe, I don't know if you guys were all on council back then, but the city gave $8.3 million to the school system in 2004. In 2005, that funding was dropped to a fixed $2 million cost, okay? And back then, it was justified. We could see some of those things. Jefferson County, I believe in 2007, gave $85.6 million to the school system. So we had some money coming in. So they were able to look at, the city could say, hey, how can we save money for the city? We got this here. Let's not waste that. Right now, we need to reevaluate that. I think what we've done over the last couple of years, saying that $2 million really needs to change. The $2 million is about 1.3% of our income for the school system at this point in time. You know, can we come back to a different idea, or can we get back to where we were in 2004 and come up with the new funding? I know that a couple of you guys had talked about this last year in an interview that was given about increasing the funding to the school system. Mr. Green had mentioned that he was interested in raising the funding. I know Admiral Natter had said that he was interested as long as the school board came to him and said, we need more money, and what are you going to use it for? And that should be the key. We should be able to get together and say, what do you need? We need more money, and why? And if we can justify the why, we should be able to increase the funding. And I think that right there, getting the city to go back to where they were in 2004, I think is going to be a key factor to help balance this budget. The other thing is the other side. You still have to look at expenses. We can't spend more than we make. We have to look at what's a justifiable expense. With this day and age, with only my business, I get this. The two biggest things that's going to cost them the most this year is salaries and benefits. I would bet, I haven't seen the 2017 budget, but I would bet that you're going to be at 75%. They're going to be at 75% of that budget. It's going to be salaries and benefits. I mean, unfortunately, the costs go up, not only to the city, for you guys, that you have to deal with, but to the school board also. These are things that we have to try to look at and say, okay, where else can we cut costs? We want to keep the best teachers, so we got to keep salaries where they are. If not, we at least got to try to raise them if we can. Benefits go up, insurance is going up. So where else can we cut? Moving the kids. Dr. Murphy did a good job trying to get the kids so we can utilize the resources we have with maximize the resources with the least amount of expense.
Okay. One other question. You talked about in your answers to the funding, you talk about dwindling resources. Mm-hmm. Aside from the city's standpoint, what other areas of the dwindling resources are you talking about?
Well, we're trying to keep up with the the number of kids going to the system. I know some of those numbers from the state and federal budgets. Everybody's cutting. Everybody's cutting expenses. The state, the federal government's going to be cutting. So we're going to lose some. We're not. I should say we lose. We're not going to get as much as we used to based on the percentage of the kids that are coming in. So those three sources, I think, are going to be changed as the economy keeps moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Reeves.
You're a private business owner.
Yes, sir.
With a veterinary clinic, and I guess I'm concerned about your time commitment and trying to run a business. I assume pretty much by yourself, and what those resources would be to allow you to perform your duties on the school board. Could you maybe address that for us?
Absolutely. Over the last 20 years, I started as a single practice at South Lake, and I was there for about 4 years. I opened a second office in Alabaster, And I had that office for a while, and then I partnered with another veterinarian in Helena. That didn't work out, obviously. So I'm back to my own owning the business myself. I have 2 associates that work for me, and so I have the ability to. Obviously, I can set my own schedule because I own it. So I can set the schedule based on, as far as meeting times, I can come to that. My office hours, I don't do emergencies because the emergency clinic is here in town. It is a small practice. We are typically 1 doctor at each office. So when I'm busy, but I have a lot of downtime. And so the downtime I have time to do some research. I have time to do things at the office that I can work on that's going to be used for the school board. Nighttime, I'm typically wide open right now. I'm doing most of the stuff I'm doing. As I said, my kids are older. My youngest one's still here. We do a lot of soccer. I do a lot of travel soccer, but her schedule is usually on weekends, and it's been flexible, so if I can't go, my wife goes.
Why would you say that maybe you'd be the best candidate for this position?
I think all the candidates are probably great. I mean, and I don't know who they are, so I bet you they all have their positives and their negatives. I think the reason that I would be a good candidate, I come from a unique perspective, I believe. Number one, I'm a small business owner. I have to do everything at the office. I run payroll. I do human resources. Basically, you run the business. If I don't do a good job, if I don't balance my budget, I'm not in business. I have to let my employees go. So that kind of helps me get that perspective. I've had 3 kids in the school system. I know what the school system's like. I know how they've been handled through the different schools, and I think I have a unique perspective from that side. My wife's a school teacher, not in the Hoover system, but she is a school teacher. So I understand that some of the challenges that the teachers that our teachers are coming from in different school systems, and we can see how that is going to into the Hoover school system. As I said earlier, I have businesses in different locations. I spend 2 days a week in Alabaster, and I spend some time here. During my time with my clients, I can spend time with them, not only taking care of their patients, to their pets, but I spend time talking to them. And a lot of times we talk about schools, and I ask them, how are things going at Shelby County? How are things going in Alabaster? How are things going in Helena? Over the years, we just talk about what we think was good and bad. And not saying that what they're doing is right and what they're doing is wrong, or vice versa, but it's great to hear good things and bad things that happen there, and we hear good things and bad things happen here. So when we sit down in a school board meeting, we can say, hey, they've tried this over here, it didn't work. So why do we want to waste time and resources in doing that again if it's not going to work? So it kind of gives me a unique perspective.
Thank you very much.
No
Thank
problem.
you for applying.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Green?
Yes, you mentioned your application that you're very involved at the high school.
Mhm.
What's your involvement been?
We've been active in the, we go to PTO functions. We were doing, especially early on. My wife, I'll be honest, when I was first starting, she did a little more than that because we had a brand new business owner, having the spare time to do it. But we do sponsor and support several functions and activities there. We're active in the booster clubs, the band booster, the choir booster. One of the things I mentioned there especially was the Gold Club Booster Club. And what that is, they used to have just one booster club for the soccer program, and we pulled the girls' soccer program out separately because we wanted to make sure the girls had their own program. So we started a booster program there. I was the president of that booster club for 6 years. So.
And have you had the opportunity to attend any school board meetings?
I have not come physically into school board meetings, but in this modern day of wonderful technology, all these meetings are recorded, and they are posted on YouTube. So I have been able to review several of the school board meetings.
Okay. What do you see as, in a nutshell, the primary responsibility of a board member? What does that board do?
What the board does? Our job is not necessarily to go out and set all the policies. We just have to make sure they get approved, and it's the right thing that we have to do for the students and for the people of the community.
Okay. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Doctor, Mr. Wright kind of opened the door about local funding. Are you familiar with the 24 mil fund?
No, sir.
24 mil fund is part of your property tax that goes to the schools.
Okay.
Currently, that provides somewhere north of $37 million a year. And those also are considered local funds, in
Okay.
addition to what the city appropriates from the general fund. As part of your balancing process, do you think if you saw it necessary, would you want to go to the citizens and ask them for an increase in property taxes to help balance the budget?
Like I said earlier, my answers are probably not the most welcome into most of the community, but absolutely. I think we as citizens of the city, we need to sit down and look at all different options. And if it calls for us to increase property taxes, I have no problem going to citizens and asking for that. I think if we explain to them, communication is the key. And you guys saw this over the years. Good communications will make your day as happy as possible. Bad communications will give you nightmares for weeks. So I think if we sit down and come up with a plan, we come up and explain to the citizens and the people what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, let them come and question and work back and forth for a while and come up with a plan that's going to be the best for the majority of the citizens. I have no problem asking for more money through taxes. But that can't be the only, property taxes can't be the only way. We have to look at other options too, because granted, the biggest question is people say, well, I don't have kids in the system. Like I'm retired or I'm a senior. Why do I want to pay for the kids? Well, that's why I said part of it's our responsibility as parents and citizens of the city to make sure our kids are educated. And part of it is responsibility for us to find out their options so that it's the burden of the kids not just on property tax but other sources of revenue.
You brought up policies. If the superintendent made a recommendation and a majority of the board agreed with it, but you disagreed, would you vote against the policy change or the new policy, or would you just go along with the majority to make it look good?
I believe, again, communication is the key. If we get a group of people together, and I think our goal here is to do what's best for the kids. If I strongly disagreed with what she was doing, and I don't think it's the best in the best of the kids' interest, not just for me saying I don't like it, but talking to other people in the community, talking to the families, talking to others, if I truly believe that it's not the right thing, I have no problem disagreeing with somebody. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if the vote is, if there's 5 of us on the board and the vote's 4-1, and the vote for was 4 and 1's against it, at the end of the day, I got to support the superintendent. If it was voted, it was approved 4-1, whether I like it or not, my job is to support the superintendent and what needs to be done.
Once it's passed.
Once it's passed, correct.
Do you know the 2 positions that are the sole responsibility of the board when it comes to hiring and terminating?
My understanding, as far as hiring and terminating of the staff of the
There are 2 people within the school system
superintendent,
and
and I do not know the other one.
CFO.
CFO, okay.
Let's say the CFO is a very popular individual, and 2 members of the board come to you and say, we just don't like how she's acting. Would you ever find yourself agreeing to terminate a popular person such as that?
If they are doing something, is it just based on personality or just somebody doesn't like them? No, I can't do that. If they're doing something wrong, that's a violation of their job description or a violation of state or federal law, yes, I think then we would have to get rid of them whether they're popular or not.
Just because those other 2 people didn't like that person?
I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think you should. No, I don't think I know I would not do that.
Okay. Do you know about the Alabama Accountability Act?
I'm not, no, sir.
Okay, that's the act that was passed a year or 2 ago that allows for students in failing schools to be able to get vouchers to be able to try to attend schools with better practice.
Okay.
Talk about local funds. The others, someone brought up Common Core already.
I didn't this time, this round I did not. In the interest of time only.
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions from the board like to bring up after hearing? Sometimes another thought pops in your head.
I'll go ahead and ask about your opinion of Common Core. There's not necessarily a right answer.
There's not.
Doesn't disqualify you.
Yeah.
put you at the top. Just,
No. It is that's a debate that, like I said, there's not a right or wrong answer. I mean, that's a debate that's been going on for a while, and I think I'm going to give the political answer. I said we have to do what's.
No, you got to give the honest answer. You got to give the honest answer.
I think we have to. I think there's a lot of. I don't like.
And don't
Okay, I hate the new math. My daughter came home with that new math, and she started asking me some of this stuff about the new math stuff. I don't get it. I'm a fairly educated person. I didn't get it, and I got in a discussion with my daughter, and this was a while back when she was at Rocky Ridge, and we met with the teacher, and I said, listen, this makes no sense to me. I said, we need to come up with a plan. If the kids can get it, we could teach them one way. Why do we have to go somewhere else? I said, this is just dumb. And that teacher happened to agree with me, but she said, this is what I have to do because this is my job. And I said, I get that. So that's why I said I have to be careful on some of those things. So hopefully I answered your questions.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that doesn't get the math.
I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
4 plus 4 still equals 8, but you have to go about.
But you have to put the thing over the top and turn the thing and bring the zero. No.
Thank you.
Doctor, I'm sure you were prepared to answer many more questions that were asked today. Unfortunately, we have certain
Sure.
time restraints. There may be a possibility of requests for second interviews. There is also a possibility a member of the committee may contact you to ask you some additional questions. With that being said, before leaving, do you have anything that you weren't asked that you would like us to understand that may help your position with your application?
We have other challenges. There are other things that we're going to have to deal with that we didn't talk about. Technology being one, the up and coming, growing more technology, new technology, dealing with cyberbullying. There's things that we got to deal with. Growing population. You talked about getting more schools as the population grows. The majority of things I think we've hit on. I can't stress enough about communication. Good communication is going to make you or break you no matter what you do. I think at this point, I apologize for not knowing some of those things.
Well, you're not expected to know everything.
So I think we covered the majority of the questions that I thought we were going to ask.
Some of it's just to help determine the depth of the knowledge. It's like answering questions on a lot of things. Some things are thrown in that you're really not supposed to know. But
Yeah. But you should know, or at least have an idea, and I apologize for not knowing those things.
no problem. Well, thank you, sir.
All right.
And hopefully you will be hearing from the city clerk's office one way or the other soon.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for break? With that, Ms. Retzer.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
I believe we met first in the back of the room.
Yes, sir.
A while back. Do you have any prepared statement that you would like to us, provide to us?
I do.
Start out?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for taking your time and giving me consideration and looking over my application that was submitted. I do appreciate it. My husband and I have been members of the Hoover community for a little more than 12 years. We have 2 children. Both of our children attended Rocky Ridge Elementary. My son is in the 6th grade at Berry Middle School, and our daughter also attended Berry Middle School. She is now in the 9th grade. She's a freshman at the Alabama School of Fine Arts. She made the decision to apply to ASFA because she wants to pursue her further studies in music education and perform and be a classical vocalist. I worked in the corporate world for a little more than 11 years. I was in the financial services and banking industry and made the decision to stay home and to become a little more active in our community. And my husband traveled quite a bit, and it was necessary for me to stay home with our children. So I grew up in a small town in North Alabama. It was a single parent household, and community involvement and giving back was always stressed to us growing up. Just because one didn't have the financial means to contribute didn't mean that we weren't able to volunteer of our time and talents. So I've worked hard to continue giving back to the community of Hoover and to our schools through various community involvement in civic organizations and being involved in our schools. I want to model this for my children and for the other students in Hoover. I think it's so important for that community involvement and to give back. My experience with strategy, project, and program management naturally translate into the work that I've performed with our schools, and I look forward to continuing to be able to promote that. My husband and I are ardent supporters of our school district, and I've seen the positive impact that our children have experienced here in Hoover, and I want to continue that option for our children and for the children that are coming after mine into our school system. I believe it's important for students to see positive parental involvement in our schools and in the community, and I've had the privilege of serving as PTO president at Rocky Ridge Elementary for 2 years, and this year I'm serving as president at Berry Middle School. And I've been involved in several different district and administrative level committees, textbook, calendar, and climate.
You say you're self-employed, what do you do?
No, sir, I'm not self-employed. I stay home.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought-
One of the most difficult and most important jobs there are.
It is.
Lowest
It is.
paid.
Yes.
Mr. Green, would you like to start us off?
Yes, I would. Again, thank you for coming. Welcome. The amount of time that this job would require selected, do you have a thought on that? How much time that would take?
Sure. You know, I am, as far as the number of hours, I know that we have the monthly board meetings that are required, and I am willing to, of course, do that and any special meetings that are necessary. And I'm also willing and able to make different school district events and to be in the schools when it is appropriate, to interact with the students, interact with the faculty and our parents.
Okay. And that leads me to this question. Do you know what the primary responsibility of the board is?
Yes, sir. It is to establish, review, and revise school policy and to vote up or down on what's presented.
You threw me off with that interact with students.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, and have you been able to attend any school board meetings?
Yes, sir, I have.
Recently,
Yes, sir.
within the last year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any idea of how many students are in the Hoover school system?
Yes, sir. As of February the 29th, the number was 13,981 students.
What about employees?
We have,
Any idea?
I believe, and I don't, I want to say it's around 1,500, but
And the school's mission, you looked at that? What the mission is, just in general? I'm looking at it. But
Sure.
wanted
In
to
general,
give that
it's
a
to,
chance.
sure. In general, it's to continue to educate and provide opportunities for our students.
Actually, the mission is that in a safe.
Yes, sir.
Safe is the
Yes,
very
sir.
first word. Not academics, not curriculum.
Yes, sir.
Safe. So, would you support our RSOs?
Absolutely, absolutely. Through the years when the SROs started, when the SROs started coming into the school and we started seeing them more prevalently, especially at the elementary school level, you know, we had the ones that were being shared between the elementary school, and we had one who was coming over to Rocky Ridge, and it is such an enlightening way for our students to see the SROs and have that presence there in our schools. And after Sandy Hook, for them to be present, ongoing, has been very, very nice for our students to see that, and for the parents.
You think the SRO should be in each school?
I do.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Do you understand what the approximate budget of the schools are this year?
Yes, sir. So the budget is $168 million this year.
Do you have an idea of what the school reserves are as we speak?
Yes, sir. It's $126 million currently. That's with that ad valorem coming in January, February, March.
Do you understand that the property tax that on all Hoover residents is 24 mills? You know what that correlates to?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, it's about 37. There's been a lot of talk about a third high school. What are your thoughts?
I think that it is, with a school district our size, I think it's well worth looking at it. I would really encourage Dr. Murphy to consider looking at bringing in a performing arts tech career type of school for our students. I think that that is an area that we are lacking right now for our students.
What, you know, the school board term is 5 years. What do you see as the biggest challenge coming in the next 5 years?
You know, I think for us to gain unitary status, I think that's extremely important. Of course, always balancing the budget. We always want to do what's right for our students, staying current and being sure that we are front runners, front leaders for our school district. I think it's so important because our students deserve that. They're our stakeholders.
Thank you.
Mr. Shelton?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming in
Sure,
first,
thank
Ms.
you.
Retzer. Thank you very much. Most applicants want to list it as one of the most critical issues facing the Hoover City Schools is either a balanced budget or funding. What are your thoughts on that, and how would you improve that?
Sure. Anytime that I put my corporate hat on, and so anytime that we're talking about budget, you know, it's always stakeholders involved, and our stakeholders are our students and our children. There are things that are tied to that. We want to be sure that we are providing them the very best education possible, the very best resources, the very best teachers and faculty and staff, and you know, that also at the same time has to go with a budget. And we don't have an open checkbook, so we have to be prudent with how we are balancing that budget and spending those dollars.
Okay, thank you. This next question won't hurt you, but I want you to tell us your opinion on Common Core.
I worked with the administrators at Rocky Ridge a couple of years ago when Common Core started really being front of line, and I wanted to understand it a little bit more from a parent's viewpoint. I think that for our students to be competitive and to be on the same level playing ground, I do think that Common Core is a necessity. I realize that there are some shortfalls, and it's not a perfect scenario, but I do believe that we have to give our students equal opportunity and then some to be able to be competitive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does 4 + 4 still equal 8?
It does.
I was told last night, and I'm sorry this is out of order, I met a woman last night at a movie viewing, and she was telling me about her understanding of Common Core. Part of it is the rewriting of history, and that Common Core, for one example, is no longer teaching the Holocaust. What's your position on that?
I think that all historical events, we learn from them, be them good or bad. There's always a way to learn from them. And I think that the Holocaust is one of those that can't be overlooked.
Okay. I'm sorry for breaking the stride with Mr. Reeves.
I was very much impressed with this very long list of current and prior community involvement list.
Yes, sir.
Where you in the schools.
Yes,
You
sir.
obviously love the schools very much and want your children to involvement in them to be very positive. What was your driver for that?
You know, like I said in my opening statement, where I grew up, everybody was involved in everything. I was a Girl Scout, Junior Red Cross volunteer, and that was just the environment that I came up in. And education is top notch, and it is so front of mind awareness for me, and I want that, and I want my children to see the involvement. And when I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to put forth my application, I sat down with my family and my 11-year-old and my 15-year-old, and we talked about it. And I explained to them, I said, you know, this is a job. This is a commitment. This is a family commitment, and I want to know your thoughts about it. And my 15-year-old told me, Mom, you're already at the schools. You're already doing so much in the schools. I think you should go for it. And I said, okay, well, thank you. And then my 11-year-old, I said, so what do you think? And he kind of grinned. He was like, Mom, you're doing so much at the schools. I think you should continue. So I do it because I love our school system. We have some fantastic administrators and individuals in leadership roles. Our students are great, and I want to continue being a part of that.
Great. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Ms. Retzer. Let's see, going over some of the things. Let's say there's a policy adjustment that's on the table that the superintendent has brought for consideration. The majority of the board agrees with the superintendent, but you don't. And you have some valid reasons why you don't. Are you willing to vote against the majority, or are you just going to vote with the majority just because it makes everybody feel better?
If it is something that I feel strongly about, and I've done my research on it, I would have to vote against it.
Okay. Do you know the two positions that the board is directly responsible for when it comes to hiring and firing?
Yes, sir. The superintendent and the CFO.
Okay. Let's say, and the current CFO, I think she's retiring this summer, and they're going to have to replace her. But 6 months after that person's replaced, and somebody that everybody just loves to death, and 2 or more members come to you and say, look, he or she drives a Corvette, we drive minivans, I think we ought to get rid of her. Or for any reason. What's your opinion on something like that?
If there is a valid reason, you know, you have to look at the human resources stand on it. And if there is a valid reason, not just because that individual drives a certain car or wears certain clothing, you have to look at the job that that individual is doing and make that evaluation at that point.
Are you familiar with the Alabama Accountability Act?
Yes, sir.
What can you tell us about it?
I can tell you that when we were trying to pass, when the legislature was trying to pass it, I contacted a couple of state representatives because I was very upset and had some concern about the way that the numbers were playing out in the vouchers.
But in a nutshell, what did it do?
Sure, it afforded students who were in a failing school to be able to get the proper education that they so deserve.
We've talked about the budget and the 24 mil fund. What is your understanding that overly funded money brings when you're talking about units? Like right now, as my understanding, the Hoover City Schools local funding accounts for about 300 personnel for teaching units. And it allows across the board to be able to offer better pay and benefits. What do you think it's going to take, and this kind of bounces off some of the other questions, to be able to find that spot that's going to allow the school system to balance their budget?
You know, we have to take a really good look at the budget, and I know we have individuals who do it every day of the year, every month, every opportunity. And I'm not as familiar with the mills, but I will tell you that just across the board, I realize that the salary range of what we pay our employees, our teachers who are in everyday contact with our students, is nowhere near what I think it should be, only because they have one of the hardest jobs ever. In corporate America, they would get paid well over what they are, but we have a budget, and it is a public school system. So we have to stay within those parameters, and I think that we have to continue offering the benefits and looking at what the state allows us to do for our teachers so that we can continue employing them and that they want to work here in Hoover and they want to educate our children.
Okay. We appreciate the time. We may or may not be asking for second interviews.
Okay.
May or may not be contacted by a person from the committee to maybe get a little more detail about what you talked about. In finishing, you were asking a number of questions, but I'm sure you prepared for more. Is there anything that wasn't brought up today that you would like us to know about your thoughts or knowledge about the school system that may help place you in a better position for appointment?
Sure. You know, I think that we have a great school system. I think that we have a great city, and that is why we're here in Hoover. There are, just like any other school system and any other community, there are some issues, and I feel that head on. I know that I've been in some meetings with, I believe Mr. Wright has been in the meetings about the whatever it takes, and kind of dealing with the substance abuse issues in our community and in our schools, and I feel is paramount for us to get curriculum back in our schools for those students and prevention curriculum. We're missing a huge opportunity by not having that curriculum back in our schools. I think that child nutrition remains a big issue. We have children and we have families that are struggling. We have families who are working multiple jobs to make ends meet, and unfortunately those children are concerned, where's their next meal going to come from? Not necessarily am I going to make that 4.0, it's more rudimentary than that, and I think that that is something that our schools, I've spoken with Dr. Murphy about the Universal Breakfast Program. We had it at one of our elementary schools, and I really pushed and started asking lots of questions about it because I wanted it at Rocky Ridge. And they launched that back last January, and then I found out that there was food that was not being consumed, non-perishables. And so I worked with the leadership there and with the cafeteria leadership, and I went into the school every day and I got that food before it went back into the lunchroom, and I bagged it up and had some moms who met me in the afternoons, and we gave it back out to the children who wanted the food. And so that was a little way of being sure that we were providing something that was already there to go back into those children's hands. And there was no commitment. It was if the children wanted it. And after about the first week, they started looking for us with the crates of the bags. So we knew that it was getting into the hands of children who really needed it. And so
Were those foods left over because of America's First Lady's calorie program?
No,
that
sir.
The president's talking about defunding some school opportunities if they don't eat their salary or something.
I'm not sure about that. This was all from the Universal Breakfast Program, and it is a federal program.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it, and we're going to take a break at this point, and we'll see you again soon.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.